Hello everyone and welcome to this video, and I'm going to start teaching you React the fastest way possible. There might be another videos on YouTube that you can just go with, but if you want to learn the fast way possible, I would prefer you probably watch this video. And the syntaxes, the code I'm going to use in this video are going to be most simple, and they are actually connected with the latest version, that is React 17. Well, React 18 has already been built, but it has not been released officially, but you can still get the alpha version of the React 18. Well, here we go. Now we're gonna start our React course. Hope you will like this video. If you do, just hit the like button, share my video to all of your friends, and I'm going to make part 2 of this video. So, first of all, to make a React application, we need to use some commands to actually install the package necessary, actually install the node modules necessary for a React application. So first of all, I'm gonna make a new folder. I'm gonna say learning React course. Now we're going to open the folder, and then here we can just type cmd. And now here in the command panel, what you need to type, npx create React app. So the npx create React app is a basic syntax that you need to write while creating a React app on the first point, like on the first step. Then after writing this, you need to write the name of the folder wherever you want to create this. So let's say I'm gonna say learning React. So this is a basic syntax. You can also check the syntax on their official website, reactjs.organization. I'm gonna hit the enter button, and it's gonna start downloading the required necessary node modules and putting them in a package kind of stuff. So this is an important thing you need to do before making a React application. But in the future, in the part 2, I'm gonna show you how you can use templates in an npx create React app, so that you don't get the pre-made React application by itself. So everything will be blank, and you can start your stuff without deleting these stuffs they will provide you by themselves. Yeah, once you're gonna create the React application like this, they will give you some React app already built in. That will not be much of a thing, but it will just have a React logo, and that's all. So we're going to come back once our installation is done, and they're going to show you happy hacking at the end. Let me go. Okay, so the installation was completed, and I think there was some bug which this got stuck here. Okay, it's fixed now. They're going to show you happy hacking. Just now, what you need to do, we're just going to close that one. Just open that learning React application. Now here you will find so many of confusing stuffs. The git ignore, the git, if you don't know anything about git, just click this git ignore and the git. For now, we're not going to do anything with that thing. And just hit right click and open the VS Code editor. We're going to use this IDE for learning React or doing stuff with React. And before getting started, 1 minute. Okay, so before getting started, let me show you some of the extensions that I'm using for myself, and they will be really useful for yourself, you too. Just click on the extension point, and first of all, install the auto rename tag extension. This is a really great extension. It will automatically replace it will automatically rename the tag. If you have made a div tag with the closing and with the starting and ending tag. Now you're only editing the ending tag, it will automatically rename the starting tag also. So it's very good. And for formatting of our code, we're using Beautify, and we're also using the bracket pair colorizer, which will actually help us to know that in which level of the code we are. Like, let's say we have started the for loop, and we're started several of the for loops inside the for loop, making kind of like a chain stuff. So we will be confused that in which of the level of the code we are in. So it will just colorize that, like connecting the first what we say to that code brackets to the ending last code brackets of that syntax. And it's really great. It's really helpful tool. It helped me a lot. And we have the EX7 React native snips, actually React snips, and these are really helpful. I'm going to show you how are they helpful. Just install them, don't ask questions. And for the theme, we're using Halcyon theme, and it's really beautiful, man. I loved it a lot, so I'm personally using this. And probably that's all stuff we have here. And I'm also using the material icon theme if you like see these kind of thumbnail stuff. So probably that's it for our extensions. Now let's talk about that, which files you need. First of all, just delete all of those files excluding the index.html, and in the source file delete all of the files excluding index.javascript file. I'm going to explain that now. I'm also going to uninstall and delete the readme.md file. So you can see, you might notice there are two folders. I mean, it's actually three folders. One is node modules, then we have public folder, and then we have src folder. So in the node modules, we will have all of the npm required modules that we need for our server. But actually we will actually put the required modules in the package.json, and once we upload our file to some hosting server, we will not upload our node modules folder because it's so heavy. So we're actually going to put some of the modules that we actually need in here, so that the server will automatically download them using npm install. In the public and source folder, the public folder, whatever file the public folder will contain, it will be shown to the user in the source code of the file. Like the user opening your website in the browser, and then he just go to the developer mode or inspect element, and he will visit the source of the website. He will find the index.html as this is in the public folder, but he will not find this index.javascript as it is in the source folder. And this is not actually JavaScript, this is actually JSX, and it will be compiled to JavaScript by the React under the hood. We're not going to look at that, how is that thing going to happen, but it happens. So it compiles JSX to JavaScript later on, and the user will never get to know that what was the actual code, because it always compiles the same way all of the files. So it's really hard for anyone to get your code like that. I mean to say, it's kind of impossible. So well, yeah, here you can see, you might notice we have index.javascript and index.html. Let me be clear in the index.html to make sure that you guys know every single thing. I have seen many tutorials say, yeah, just let it be there, we're going to do with the stuff with the other thing. But let me be clear, we're just going to make a single file. Like we have the title learning React. In the body part of the HTML, we're going to make a div. It's not important to make a div, but as usual, everyone makes div in the body. You can just make it span, it doesn't matter. But let's say, for example, we're gonna make a div, and now we're not going to write any single HTML code in our index.html. That's all. You see, that's all we wrote. Now all the coding we're going to do will be in the index.javascript or any of the components. Like we're going to make a different file for the footer.javascript, navbar.javascript, or anything internal like names.javascript, something like that. Now here, how do we access this index.html? We can do what? We can just give it an ID of root. It's not important to give the ID of root, but we prefer to give it the ID of root because we will usually not use the ID is equal to root in our website. So root is not kind of like a default name what we give in a React application. You can give it whatever name you want to do, or you can do another thing. You don't have to actually define any ID. You can just access this div using document.query selector, then the location, and then the path of the div. So that's how we do it. We're actually going to in this JavaScript, we're going to mention the document.get element by ID root, and so actually it will all publish. It will just convert all of the JavaScript code into HTML and add that HTML in within this div of the website, and that will be our final code and final touching. I'm going to show you that. So actually, let me just go to the index.javascript. You can see React.strict mode. Oh man, what is that? Just delete it. That's how we do it. Now, first of all, while we're getting started with writing anything into the index.javascript, let me mention, we don't have to make it index.javascript. We can literally name it anything, and we need to connect our main file. So index.javascript is actually that file that will link all of the files together. Like we will import our footer.javascript here and app.javascript here, and we will just make them mix them all together here, link them all together here, and this index of JavaScript is going to give all the code to here in between this thing. So actually it's going to make a website for us, actually a web page that will all be handled by the index of JavaScript, and then we can we can make different files in here like footer.javascript, and we can connect that footer.javascript within our index of JavaScript. So that means we can we're not going to give the browser file separately. We're not going to give it footer.javascript separately, then nav.javascript separately. That browser will be confused and we're not going to get any input. But index of JavaScript will actually compile all of the code together and give it to the browser, and will give a whole website to the browser so that it can render the whole website in our DOM, or you can say in our web, in our browser. So that's how we do it. First of all, we need to import React. Well, actually, there was an old time people used to type import React from React, but now, as per the latest React version update, we don't have to do this anymore. Yeah, they removed this thing. Now we don't have to do that anymore. But for the main file, like I told you, this file is going to compile all of that other components together. We need to import that. We need to import React DOM from React DOM. But React DOM module is that module that's actually going to render our code, all of the components that we're going to connect with our website. That's going to render all of that to the browser. So we need to just type. It's a basic command. It's not much of a difficult. Just type the React DOM that we type here. You can just make it anything like this is this DOM, and you can just type here this DOM.render. It's not important. Like, you might be thinking, oh, we need to type this React DOM, so this should be exact React DOM. No, it's just a variable. So we're just assigning, we're just giving this value to that variable. It's just basic thing like that. We're named React DOM as its default variable. This is default name, so that's how we name it. Now we need to type React DOM.render. That render will get two arguments. The first argument is going to be the component or the whatever code you're going to give to the browser, and second component is going to be where you want to give, which of the element you want to target, where we're going to put all of our code. Like I told you before, in the index.html we're targeting the div with the ID of root, so we're going to put all of our code in between this div. So what we do, we're just going to type document.getElementById, and here we're going to type root. So in here, let's suppose we're going to have a heading tag. This is our heading, and well, that was it. Now how do we start our website? Just click on the terminal and just click new terminal. Here we're going to type npm start. And another thing I want to mention here, while we are uploading our code to the website, we're not going to do npm start on our website, because this is not a good way to do that. You can see this is our heading, we're getting this is our heading, and it's really cool. Let me do one thing. Let me just make it shrink it a lot. Is there any way we can do that? 1 second. Oh no, I can't do it like that. So I saw someone do that, so I was confused. I can do one thing. I just put this here, shrink it to the end, so that you will also know what's happening on the other side. Now you can see we made the index of JavaScript. Now you're not actually going to put your code in here, like write all of your headings, all of your components thing, all of your footer thing here. That's gonna be so messed up, because then there is no fun in writing the code in React. You can write that in a normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But how do we do that then? Well, for that we're going to make another component, but in the same file, in the same src folder, because we're going to keep our files hidden. Like if you're going to put a file in the public folder, that's going to be storing your passwords. The user can see that actually, so you don't want the user to see your files. No, you don't want. And these public and SLC file are must. These public and SLC folder are must for a React application to start. It's going to throw up an error if you're not made a public or SRC folder. So that is important to notice. Know. Now we're gonna make another file here. Let's name it as app.javascript. And it's always must. I will always prefer you to name your files. Name the first letter of your file name as capital, because that's a really good thing you can do. Now, well, we're just making components, or like say a header for the website. We're not gonna do the same thing as we did in the index of JavaScript. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit different. So what actually we're going to do, we're actually going to export this app. We're going to make it something like, we're going to export this app, and then here we're going to import the app. We're just going to write import app from /app. We don't have to mention the JavaScript because JSX is, you know, intelligent enough to know that. And now in the app.javascript, what we want to do, you just need to type export default. So FAULT. So it's going to export the function as default. We need to give it some function, or you can give it some variable, some constant, something like that. But we're actually going to give it a function. So we're gonna write export default and then function, the name of that function, and inside this function is actually going to return the value of the function. So when you actually type return in our function, and whatever code we're going to write here will be will be given to this export default function, and whoever imports our app, our function, actually we don't have to write this. This is not a name. Name is not related to the file name. This name is related to whatever function name we have given here that we're exporting actually. So basically we can export multiple things. Let's say we're exporting default. Oh, never mind. We're not going to talk about that. That's a little bit deep thing. Actually, we're actually going to only export one thing at default, and we can export another things if the thing is not there. Let's suppose something happened and we cannot, this app function is not there. Then we can export something else, and that's a little bit deep thing because we usually will not need that as a beginner, or you can say as a starting point. For now, you're going to need to understand that how do you actually make a file, make a website, make a React website. So in the return function, here you need to write your HTML code, your JavaScript code, whatever code you want to write. You can write that here, or you can write that JavaScript code, blah blah blah. You know what I mean to say. You can write that outside here. It doesn't matter. So you're free to do, unless that until you can access that JavaScript code. So they should not be a problem. Now in the React, in the return point, okay, what are we going to write here? First of all, there should be only one parent element, and inside the parent element you can make several child elements. Now let's suppose we're making a div, then we're making another div. This has some text. Let's say this has some text. This has some text, and this has some text. Now let's say what the error is saying. You can say JSX expression must have only one parent element. So that means we can only make one div, and inside the div, inside this div, we can make another div. So we can make another two divs. That's not gonna give us error. So probably we're only going to return only one particular element to the back to our so wherever we're going to import that thing. We're only gonna export only return one of the divs. One of the not important div, I mean to say one element. So probably in the, you don't want to like return a div. So what we do, we just return an empty tag, and that's not gonna be a div or anything else. It's just going to be empty tag, and you're still going to be fine making several divs. So that's how we do it. We just return an empty tag. Well, probably you can also make this function like that. You can make this function, and you can write the export default app here at the down part. It's going to work the same way, but we will always prefer to make our code much better as possible. Now here we're going to just copy this is a heading. We're going to cut that, and we're going to paste that here. You can see the same code. Now let's see in here what we need to type. Instead of writing the h1, we're going to write stop tag app/close. We're going to write a closing tag with the name of whatever we're actually importing from the app. So we're importing the function app from the location app. So here you can see now we need to just have make a closing tag with that with the name of the function. We cannot make a starting tag. It's going to show us an error, or we cannot make another tag. It's also going to show us an error for the starting tag because it only accepts one ending tag for a component. Now you can see we have done every single thing. Now let's refresh our website here, and you can see everything is working fine, and it's really cool. Let me show you something is happening in the console. They're showing us waiting for update signal for WDS. So this is a problem that many of the teachers of the tutorials will not tell you. Just go to the node modules here. Just go to node modules here and how do we search for any file? Okay, we need to search for webpack. Okay, now to this one. Never mind. They are a bit bad at this thing. So what we do, we're just gonna go to the webpack folder. It's gonna be in the W. Okay, let's take a look at that. It's going to be actually like blue, like this. Just open this one and open the hot folder in this one. So this is not actually related to the React coding. I'm just telling you because we don't want to see this thing in our console. Just open the log. You can find this solution in the Stack Overflow also. Now come down here. You can see module.export. We're exporting the module. Now what we can do, just comment out the if statement, comment out the condition. Just don't comment out the function, otherwise it's gonna show us an error. Now if you refresh the code, it's still gonna show us this because we need to actually terminate our server for one time and start it back again. Now it's gonna open another window here. It's fine. You can see you will not find any error here, and you can find another error. Let me just mention also the error. The error can be that let me just show you an example, like something like this, something like that they're gonna show something like that error. So how can you fix the error? Just go to index.html, and we're actually not mentioning our index. We're not actually connecting our code with that yet. Okay, so the thing is that we don't have to mention our script here like that. We don't have to mention our script, but if you do, let's say you mentioned your script here. Let me just close it right there. We don't have to get anything else. I have to do that. Okay, let's say the script src is equal to slash src slash index of JavaScript. Now we're making a file like that, and now here you might notice uncaught syntax, unexpected token. This, if you're using a script src is equal to index of JavaScript, you're going to get this error. But probably, well, we don't have to do that because we're actually running our server on JavaScript. So when I'm running in the live server, it's gonna throw us the error. But still, if you want to know how to fix the error, you just here type is equal to text/jsx, because it's actually JSX code. So now they're not gonna show the error. We probably would have mentioned the scripts in here because JavaScript is so intelligent. We wouldn't have to tell it anything, or we wouldn't have to tell it every single thing by ourselves. So it can do the things by itself. Is an intelligent code. Okay, now we know the basics. Now we're gonna talk about the props and the states in React. These are the main things that that's actually gonna help you make a website. So props are some values or some data that you want to give. That, like, let's say in here that index has some data. Index will collect some data that user will give it, but app does not cannot collect the data that user will give. So we're going to pass that data that user gave us in the index from using the index.javascript file to this component, to the app component. We're going to give some value here, and we're going to export some data in the app data. We're going to actually make something here and give it some data. Let's say app is equal to this app, and here how are we going to collect that app? Are we just going to go like app? No, it's gonna be a string. Let me show you. It's just a string. See, it became a string. And how we do that? We actually need to mention here props in the app. After in our function, we need to mention a props argument that we are actually collecting props. But it's not important to name it as props. You can name it whatever you want to name it, like name or whatever. But by default, we name it as props because it's actually props. So we can name it apps. It's a default. We can name it props. It's a default thing. Now how we actually write this server heading. 1 minute. Okay, so I'm back to the topic. So actually, what let's say our app name is. Let's say we're saying something like that. Our app name is. Now we need to get this app name from the index.javascript file because app.javascript doesn't know what is the file name. So we're using props in order to transfer some of the data, some of the value, or some of the data from one file, one component to another component. So you can see I made here our app is equal to this app. Now let's say app is equal to Elderny, for example. Now how do we get that? We need to just start those code with brackets. Inside the code brackets, you can actually write your JavaScript while you're inside the return function, because it usually it will usually collect only the HTML code of the web or of our website, or the CSS code. And how do you write the CSS code? I'm also going to mention that right now, but for now you can see we need to, for writing a JavaScript code, we need to write that inside of a curly brackets. But in normal JavaScript, how we used to, in normal kind of like a website, how we used to do that, in normal JavaScript we need to mention a dollar, but this dollar is going to be shown here. You can see they're showing this dollar here, so we don't have to mention a dollar. We're just gonna make something like that, and here we're gonna access the app from the props. So we're just gonna write props.app. Now you can see our app name is Elderny, so you can pass the props from one component to another component. Here you can see we just mentioned props.app. So props is actually object, and in the app is a variable of the object. So you can see this is the variable of the object. Now you can pass several props using this technique, but what we usually do, we actually want to make it a little bit better. So we usually will not give any props in the index.html. So probably we're going to make another element for that, because we're going to make sure that our code should be as clean as possible. So let's say in the app.javascript, we're not going to make any props, but what we're going to do, we're going to import, we're going to make another file here, component.javascript, and yeah, let's go back, import component, just type a little bit of the name, it will React will automatically detect that. Just hit tab. It's gonna, oh no, wrong call. It's gonna component, actually the component, there is a component, I'm gonna mention that also. So what actually is component in React? We use the component in React while making a class-based class-based component. So there are two types of things you can do while importing a element, while importing a component in React. First of all, we can use the function. We just wrote here function app and export default function app. Now another thing, you can do this thing, but we don't usually prefer to do that because that was an old way. But we're actually going to use a little bit of states in that form, but in the newest React we can use state, and we can use that in our function. That's really easy. Let me just show you an example just to make sure that you know that what was happening before in React while we were importing our class. We also import classes now, and that's not a big deal, but I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to write export. No, let's don't write export. It should be a normal class, and the class name should be like we write the function name. We're just going to write the name here. Let's say app1. Then we're going to write extends, and here in the extends part, we need to mention the component that is, let's say that's kind of like, module kind of stuff of React. So for that, we have two things to do. Either we can just import React so that we can here type react.component, or we can do another thing. We can just type component in under curly brackets, and we're just gonna remove the React, and we can do this thing like that, like this also. App1 extends component. But the problem is we actually imported the same name, component. This can make a problem, but I'm just showing you an example. We just used to write it like class app1 extends component, and just don't worry about the extends component. This is just internal React thing. We just need to consider it on the class app1. This is like function, and that's the name of the function. This like another syntax. And in here we need to first of all write render, and then after render we need to write return. And that's all. In the return we're gonna do the same thing we will be actually doing in the function app. But in here there's another thing we can do. in function we access any of the functions like normally. Let's say handle chains. Let's say we made a function inside here. For example, we made handle chains function. We're gonna access in the function React function component. We're gonna access this normally as handle chains. But if you're gonna make the same thing in the class-based React class-based component, what we need to do, we need to type this dot handle chains. We can actually type like that. So I'm not actually writing any code for that thing, because it's not a particular function, and this is really crap. We actually need to make a state, something like that. So I'm gonna show you that in the future. But to access any any function or anything in the class, we need to write this dot, so it will know this means the class name that we're actually talking about, the functions that are actually from this class, app1 class. So it's gonna check that if this class that the function is in this class. So that's why we write this dot class, this dot function name, or this dot any variable name. That's how we do it. And this was a little bit confusing, and you might think, what is this render? That's a React thing, like I told you before. And classes are not much of a complicated thing, but it's not for us right now. We're not gonna go into that stuff, because that was the old thing. You need to use classes. I'm not saying you don't have to use classes, but we'll talk about that in the future. Now we're gonna go into the component part, and here I wanted to show you a quick thing. Like what you're gonna do, you're gonna just write export default, something like that. Now you're gonna write export default, then name of the function component, something like that. The component was a bad thing to write. Let's say main page. Okay, seems cool. Main. And you might have noticed that React automatically changed the name of that variables of that address. So that's really cool. Now we don't have to import this function. Now this has been hidden because the actual problem is that we're not exporting it yet. So how we can export it real quick? We're just going to type RFC. That's a fastest way to import React, as we had downloaded the React snips. Just hit enter. Whoa, what's happening, man? How is it so fast? And they're importing React from React, as it was a needy thing before React 17 or 16 came. I don't remember, but something like that. And we don't have to import that thing. So you can see they're automatically making your export default function, and the name of the function is going to be the name of the file name. It's not important, but we usually prefer to do that, and that's how we do it. So you can see this was really quick. We're gonna do it again, RFC, and we got this thing. And for importing a class-based component, we just type RCC, and then we'll import the class-based component. Like I told you before, things are the same, just we don't have to mention this React. And yeah, that's how we do it. And yep, let me just make it RFC real quick, and I'm gonna actually delete this thing. I just deleted that using Ctrl+X, and you can just hold Ctrl+Alt to make things go up and down, and you can hold the shift, then you can go up, and you can hit tab to make the things and a little bit go right using the shift plus tab, and you can hold on shift and press tab. The elements will go back, but our formatter will do that thing by themselves, like that. It was already formatted, so there was nothing we could have formatted here. Now what we gonna do, let's say this is our code, for example. Okay, we're not showing up anything on the page because we're not actually using this thing here, main page / this is our code. Now you can see we also made a child component. We're making this main component where we're accessing app. In the app we're accessing different components. So actually in the index of JavaScript, or some main JavaScript, we're always going to only get one of the JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file should have all of the files, like it should be having the footer file. It should be having the sidebar file. It should be having the navbar file. Actually, this should be at the top. So something like that. The app.javascript is going to handle it all. Well, the names you can name them according to yourself. But I'm just talking about the by default people prefer to do something like that. I'm gonna go back a little bit back where we actually had our working code. That was main page. Now we're gonna give some props to the main page. Now let's say app is equal to LDROM, and in here I'm gonna say, let's say app name is, first of all we're gonna get the props, as by default we'll name the props, and here we're gonna start the curly brackets, and let's type props dot we're gonna type props dot, what's the name, app. What's the app? You can see app name Elderny, LDROM. Yep, that's true. So you can get multiple props like that, but usually, let me mention another thing. You cannot change the props name. Like, you cannot change the name of the app while you're giving props, because props are only readable. They are, they have a property that's only read only. You cannot edit props. Like, let's suppose, what are we doing? We're having input at the top, and what we want to do, whatever we just type in the input, we're just gonna type in the input, and we want that app name to be according with the app name here to be whatever we're just typing in the input. But actually we cannot edit this props name because it's only readable, so we cannot actually edit the props. Now you might be thinking that how are we gonna do that? Well, that's the thing where the apps play the main role. Not at the apps, I mean to say where the state plays the main role. So we use state at in this case. So before, well, you can write state in a class-based component by writing this dot state. But like I told you, as React updated, now we can use state, and that's a really advanced form of the React. I want to show you how we can actually use the use state option. But for now, let's say that we're giving the app name in the app, or otherwise you can just do the things in the main page itself. Well, let's suppose the main page, when I wanna like something, we don't wanna do that, so we can just. But one thing I want to mention, we're just still going to access it like props.app or name.app. The thing is going to be same, but the thing is going to be that we're not going to give the value like this, okay? Like, I'm gonna just say it like this. We're gonna give it as a state value. So let me show you that how we do that. Now outside the return option, we're actually going to import that thing that's called use hooks. Right, there is RTC or FC. No, that was a import React hooks. RCH. Oh no, never mind. So we're gonna import it by default. Import use state, actually, not hooks. So we just need to import this like in the curly brackets, because use state is more like, it's just like a component, because we're going to import this thing from the React itself, React folder, React module itself. So we need to put them in the curly brackets so that we can use them as a JavaScript code in our website. So we import the use state. Now how do we use the use state? So basically what we're going to do, show you. If we're going to type use state, probably nothing is going to happen. There's another thing, the function of use state. We're going to hit enter on the function of use state. You might have noticed, okay, we made a constant, and then inside the long bracket we have a state, and then set state. Then we have the equal to use state, and then use state is a kind of like a function. Use state is a function, and use state has an initial state. Oh man, so much confusing. What we're going to do? Look, it's not confusing. It's so easy. So in the constant state is going to be the prop that we're going to give to the user. Let's suppose the state is going to be some value that, like, we're getting the value of the input. That's going to be value of the state. And now in this part, we're not actually, like, the thing is, we're actually making the let's say we're making this h1 in here. So let's say we're making input in here. We usually will not do that, but let's suppose we're making input in here. I'm not gonna make it like that. We should be making input like this, because this doesn't make sense. We don't actually close the input like that. We need to close our inputs like that. And in normal HTML, how we close our tag, let me show you. We just have a slash on the starting of the tag, but in JSX we have the slash at the ending of the tag, and you need to consider noticing that thing. So the input type is going to be text probably, and we can see input type is equal to text. Now, while we have the input type is equal to text, what we want to do, we will actually access this input type, and let's say normally we're gonna put this thing input here, and let's say input has a name, app name, and input has a value of nothing. We're probably not gonna give the empty value, because if we're gonna do that, we will not be able to type anything in the input. So let's say we're gonna do like that. Now we can type anything here, so that's perfect. Input type is equal to text, name is equal to app name, and probably that's it, because now we're able to type here. We can just use some placeholder, but that is not what we are talking about right now. Now here, what we are going to do, the constant state is going to be, the value of the input. The value of the input is going to be in the constant state, and the set state is actually going to be a function that's going to, change the value of that state. And you might be confusing, man. What is happening? Let me just clear your confusions right away. Now let's say the state value is equal to, like, the state is actually going to be more like, normal variable. We're not gonna name it a state. Let's say name. Now let's say name is the app name, so let's take it as app name. Okay, now the app name is equal to nothing. You can see nothing, but we usually just give it as blank string. So the actually app name is nothing, because we don't know anything about the app name, and we need to give that app name as a prop to the main page, so that we will update the value in the heading one. Here we can update the value here. So it might be confusing, man. How do we actually do that? Let me just close this thing, so that we don't have anything there. Now the set state is going to be a function, and how the set state function is going to actually work. So it's going to work like, it's going to take it's going to take the happening function, and it's going to make let's say set state is a function. Set state is a function. This is the latest how we actually make it functions. Let's say set state is a function, and here we're going to do what? We're going to just access the app name variable. App name is equal to, and this set state function is getting the event from where we're just firing the function. We're going to actually give this function through the props, and we're going to run the function on change of the input. We're going to make here an event listener on change, and we're going to listen an event that's going to be props dot what are we going to name here? Let's say set state. Now let's say it as handle change, something like that. Props dot handle change. Let's say handle change. Okay, we name it something like that, and this event is, we can name it as E, or we can name it as whatever we want. So we probably name it as event or E. So this is going to give back this function the the element of that, where the address of the element and everything related to the element, actually all of the name, ID stuff the element has, back here to this function. Now here what we can do, we just type event.target, the event, the whatever element we're targeting, we can just get that thing from here. Now we type dot value. You can say app name should be equal to the event.target value. So that means the value of this input bar. Well, in the case of in case of a checkbox, we can just type dot checked, and we can do something. I'm gonna show you that condition also, but for now we're not talking about that condition. So we're usually gonna make it as value. So for now, that's how we're going to do it. So well, yeah. Now what we're going to do, this app name is actually going to be equal to the use state, the whatever thing we're going to put here. Let's say by default the name should be let's say waiting, and here in app we're gonna give it a JavaScript that's going to be app name. Now you can see they showed us waiting as in the use state. We're giving a string by default that's going to be waiting unless unless we will not run the handle state function that's actually going to change this default value by the app name value that we're just changing using this function. So let's do one thing. Let's take it out of here. Okay, now let's refresh the thing. Okay, one second. Handle change. Okay, blah blah blah. Handle change has already been defined. Handle change. Even dot 1 second happening. We just defined it already. Let me just take a look at that. What's the problem? Okay, the problem is that okay, so 1 second, I'm gonna just take a look at the okay guys, so I figured out the problem, and the problem is that the handler change function is a constant function and it has been already defined in here. So now I'm gonna say set name. We're gonna name it a set name, and in here what we actually need to do, we need to just start the function set name, and inside that we're gonna just do like call this thing. We're gonna put this thing in here. Okay, so easy. We're gonna put this thing in here. We're gonna refresh the thing. Handle change is not defined. Handle change is not defined. Make it constant handle change. Now, okay. 1 second. Assignment to constant variable. Okay, we can't actually change something like that. Save it. So refresh it. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, guys. So I'm back. I'm really sorry. Well, I actually didn't mention one thing, that the app name is also constant, but actually we don't need to mention the app name here, because the set name is actually changing the value of the app name itself, as this is another argument that's a function that's used to change the value of the app name by itself. So we're only gonna give the event.target value to the set name, and we're gonna refresh our app. Waiting. This is something cool. Okay, so you can see here, and it was really cool that we actually changed the first thing. Now what we can do, let's say this is going to be a first name, set name. We're gonna run the set name for every single thing. I'm not actually gonna make a, but run the set name for everything. I'm gonna name first, set first, set last name, like that. And the handle change is also going to do like what? The handle change, well, the thing is, you might be confusing that how are we gonna actually differentiate between if this variable is the first name or the last name. Let me just name that first name, second one is going to be the last name. Okay, prop start. Let's say first name, and this one is going to be the last name. Okay, now you might be thinking that we're just changing the value of both of them in here. Let's because we did the set first, we're doing the set last, and you might be thinking, they're actually going to change the value because they're only going to select the first event first and the last one last. And that is true. Let me just show you the example here. App name is not defined. Okay, because app name is not defined as an app, the first name as first name, and then last name as last name. Pretty cool. Now you can see whatever we type is going to change the value in both of them, because we're not mentioning anything, we're not saying any difference, because we're just changing the value as it is. Now how do we actually change the value according to these things? For that, you can see here in the main at this point we need to make another one here. Okay, on the text. This was with the name of, let's say, first name. This one with the name of last name. And while we are just getting event, we're also getting the name attribute of the file. So we're actually going to access the name attribute of the file, and we're going to name the first name as similar as we have the variable name. We're going to name this variable name as similar as this variable name. So what the logic we're going to apply, I'm going to show you that right now. That's so easy. So we're going to have the same on handle change stuff. Here I'm going to make a break tag. Oh, sorry, I need to put this off the tag. So another one, so that has some actual difference here. Okay, first name waiting, last name waiting. Now in here, in the handle change, we're going to make it constant, and that's the constant is going to have two variables. The first name is going to be the name and the value, and both are connected with the event, the target. So this is just to make our things more easier. Like we need to type event dot target dot name by ourselves. Now by using this name, we can access the event dot target dot by name just by typing name in the function, because where this thing is just like like I told you before, while using the components or while using the use state or something like that. Like for the component thing, we need to type react dot component, but while we give anything in between the curly brackets, it's also already by itself going to be as taken as dot. So you know what I mean to say? Okay, that's fine. Now what are we going to do? Actually, how are we going to set the state? Oh, that's confusing. Yeah, right, I know, right? Let me show you. Let me just tell you. So okay, what we're going to do, we're going to say if first name, last name, last name, first name. We need to change the name of the function probably. Once again, so we need to run the function like that. Yep. First name. First name. I don't prefer to do something like that, but I'm just saying for the sake of quickness. Last name. First name. No if statement. All we are going to do is basic. Name is going to be name. Yep. Event dot target name should get the value. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me just take a look at that. Okay, we're getting actually error. Let me just figure this out. Okay, well, probably I have made this kind of if statement, so it's not much of a hard thing. So I just did what if name, whatever name of the file of the input is, if name is equal to the first name. Well, we cannot mention the function name directly because it's gonna give us a return of the function, whatever the function is returning. So we just need to mention the name of the function. If it's equal to that, then run the function with the value. Okay, it's easy as that. And if not, we're just having else, and then we're gonna running a last name, then the value of the thing. It's the value of the thing. Well, we need to do this if you're using the use state in the function group, but if this would have been in the class-based component, in a React class-based component, this thing might have been a little bit more easier for us to manage. Let me just show you an example. Let's say React class-based component like that, real quick. In the React class-based component, what we do, we're just gonna name this thing. So we want to name like let's say the state. Then we have here first name empty, and then we have here the last name, that's also empty, something like that. Now here we're gonna make a handle change function just like that, and it's going to have a event. Okay, it's going to just have an event. Make this a little bit complicated because this is the latest syntax how we make a arrow based function. We're just gonna make something like that, and inside this thing, what are we actually going to do? Let's say we're having the name, like, right? So we're gonna make a constant and name, then the value are equal to this dot, no, or equal to event dot target. So like I told you, is going, the curly brackets are going to be working as a dot, so you're gonna see event dot target dot name. I want to say name is equal to value. Now you better notice that what I actually did, well probably the name, actually I want to say some name is equal to value. No, actually like that. So for mentioning this, I need to put this thing into something like that. So now while I'm saying event the target name is equal to this, it's gonna take this thing, this dot, no actually this dot, it's gonna take this thing as our first name. Probably it might be a little bit confused about this thing, so well, you should be confused because we do this thing in this dot set state. We need to use this dot set state, and we'll do like that. Well, that's how we actually do it. I don't know, was unexpected. They're showing some error. Oh yeah, because probably we need to return this thing. I don't know what is actually happening because I'm not aware of this stuff. We need to probably return this thing. Not equal to, we need to make it like that, okay? Sorry guys, I'm maybe a little bit confusing, but we don't have to return this. Okay. Okay, so this is how we do it in a class-based component. We just write this dot set state, and inside the set state, the name of the what was where object where targeting this. Let's say for example first name, and the name is equal to first name, so we're gonna put it inside the long bracket name, and then the colon, and then the value. That's actually going to be even the target value, what value we want to give it. So that's how easy. No, it's not actually easy. It's kind of like a big thing to write in a class-based component, but my thing was I needed to tell you about how we do that and that. Close this one. Let me just go back. Everything is working fine. Everything is working fine. So, well, we did a lot better till now, and we will be doing much more better in the future also. So I think that was it for this time, and I don't know what you say. You can make a quite good website using the thing I already told you about. So, well, what are you waiting for? So probably you can see here in the handle change I made this thing. If with the if conditions, you can make your own logic. You can do something else. Another thing to mention that React don't take 2 is equal to sign. It usually takes 3 equal to sign. So it makes sure that everything is crystal clear. Well, let us see. Let's take a look at that. Holy moly! Oh my God, that was so clean. We now we know that how we use states in a React application, and how we use props in a React application. And now with this thing, with this knowledge, I'm gonna make a part 2 that's going to be about hooks and the router stuff, but this was a 1 hour video, and I hope you already liked this video. This is going to be a flat 1 hour video, okay, where only 10 seconds. Like, subscribe, and share this video as much as possible. I'm going to come back with part 2. Well guys, I love you a lot, and I will keep loving you in the future also. Bye bye.